Hi, this is Julie Hutchinson with Core Performance, and today we're going to be talking about stress, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so, first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for the comments that you made because I posted something this past week and I said, do you believe there's anything good about stress? And thank you, John and Kim and Deb and Andy and Valerie and Brian for your comments. I'm going to weave those into this presentation today because there are good things about stress. And I'm going to play off of what some of you guys said. So let's dive in. I'm going to save the good for the end. Let's look at the bad first and the ugly. So look, there's been a lot of talk about stress, right? We're in well, I'll say this past year, 2020 was a pretty stressful year. And for a lot of us, right? And we talk about, we look at the effects of stress and things of that nature. And it seems to be on the rise, right? It's just like, I have more to do, less time, I'm working at home, I'm juggling tasks, and et cetera, et cetera. We've talked about stress a lot. We know that stress can be bad, but let's talk about what happens if we don't overcome stress. So I'm going to show you, actually, before I show you this, I would like to take you through an experience because I love for people to actually experience this. So I'm going to invite you guys to think about something in your life that's stressful. Now, some of you might be like, oh yeah, I've got that right off the top of my head. Others might say, let me think about this. It could be stress that you've had in the last week. It could be something that's been ongoing for a year. Could be something that you've got a stressful event coming up in the next couple of days. So I'm just going to invite you to think about this. Maybe it's an argument that you had with somebody, whatever it might be. Just think about this thing that is stressful. And I'm going to invite you to close your eyes too, because when we close our eyes, we can shut out the outside world and we can tune more into what's happening on the inside. So just bring your attention and awareness inside of your body. And as you're thinking about this stressful event, place, relationship, I'm going to invite you to really feel where this shows up in your body. Like for some of you, it might be tension in your neck, shoulders, maybe your throat gets really tight, maybe your jaw. Just notice that. Where is it stress showing up in your body? Maybe it's your solar plexus. And now I'm going to invite you to notice what emotion is tied to this. For some of you, it might be sad or grief. For others, it might be anxiety, frustration, worry. Just notice the emotion. Notice where it's showing up. Okay, go ahead and open your eyes if they're closed. What you just felt is the physiological reaction to stress. It's what happens inside your physiology when you're stressed. And we feel that. And so sometimes we can get used to that because it's just like, I've had a headache. It's just normal. It's just the way I am. I get a headache every time I work on that project, or I get a headache every time this comes up. And we kind of get used to it. Have you guys heard about the analogy of the boiling frog in the pot of water? Meaning that if you have a pot of water and it's boiling, and you take a frog and put it in there, that frog will jump right out because he knows it's dangerous and it'll kill him. But if you put a frog in a pot of lukewarm water and you slowly start to heat it up, the frog will just say, well, that's just my environment. And they adapt to it and they get used to it. And then the frog slowly boils to death. Well, that's what can happen with stress. So I'm going to show you a graph. So let me share my screen with you. So I'm going to share this graphic with you. And I'm going to show you what stress does to the body. So stress, as you can see here, if you look at these symptoms, just look right in here. Dizziness, ADHD, anxiety, grinding teeth, increased heart rate. Do you have any of these? Well, if you do, perhaps you've been to the doctor. Primary care doctor visits, up to 80% of those are stress related. Notice if you've had any of those and you've been to the doctor, what kind of remedies did they give you? Did they give you stress management help, or did they give you maybe a medication or some other things to do? The challenge with the bad part about stress is that if it goes unchecked and we don't learn to turn it off, it can lead to some of these states right here, which can lead to chronic disease states. This is like the boiling pot in the water. If we get used to, oh, I just have IBS, I've had it for years. It's just who I am. Oh, I just grind my teeth at night, no biggie. I just go to the dentist and they give me a night guard. Well, the good news about this is that you can stop that when you learn stress management techniques in the moment so that you don't become that frog in the boiling pot that slowly rises to the boiling pot. So I share that with you because oftentimes we get used to stress and then we get used to the physical ailments of it and we think it's normal. It's not. It's just not normal. But we tend to tell ourselves it is. So that's where it can get really ugly, because the ugliness of it is we make that seem normal and then we make excuses for it. And then we begin to use stress as a jolt of energy. So I have a client who, when I first started working with him, he said, man, I can get things done. If I concentrate, I go get a huge coffee from Starbucks. I sit down for 4 or 5 hours. I don't eat anything. I just crank things out, but then I'm exhausted at the end because he's getting that jolt of energy from the deadline and the stress. And he uses the caffeine to propel or push himself through it. So one of the things that I said a couple of weeks ago, I said, don't manage deadlines, manage this instead. It was manage your energy. Because when we can manage our energy and we can move from stress to what we call coherence, or a place that you can flow where you're not draining your energy, it gives you more power, has your brain work a lot better. And so when you're feeling those effects of stress, yeah, it may be that jolt, it may be the frog in the water that's starting to turn up and get hot, and it gives you that energy. But what happens later? You're exhausted. Maybe you don't sleep very well at night. Perhaps you have brain fog. Maybe you're agitated. And then we start that cycle all over again. So what if, this is one of my favorite questions, by the way, what if you could harness the energy from stress and turn it into a different energy? Sort of like, well, think about it this way. Think about some causes in the world, like MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. The anger that a mom felt when their child was killed by a drunk driver, that anger propelled the energy to start MAD, to start a movement. So there are times that when we can harness the power of that stress into something. And this is where I love your comments on this when I said, is there anything good about stress? Kim and Deb are like, yeah, it can drive you to take action. It can drive you to make change. When we're tired of something, when we're just sick and tired of it, there's a stressful situation or a relationship, it's too stressful, I'm going to move out of it. It can help us take action. Brian said, that's how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. And there's a great article that Andy posted. You can go back to the link, and it talked about good stress. This is stress when you're starting maybe a new job and there's butterflies and there's excitement, but it's a good excitement. So what if, as Valerie mentioned, stress spilled backwards is desserts? What if we could turn stress into dessert? Is that possible? Yeah, of course it is. And the way it's possible is, number one, you got to have awareness of how your body is reacting to stress, how it shows up. So when we did that exercise, where does stress show up for you? Begin to notice where that shows up. And then as you notice it, that's kind of your signal. Hey, I'm in my stress reaction. I'm feeling that tension in my solar plexus again. I'm feeling that tightness in my jaw. Must mean I'm pretty stressed. So when you can use the power or harness that energy of maybe anger, grief, sadness, harness that energy and shift that into something that renews you, that stops that stress reaction. When you can do that, you can use the benefit of the old stress reaction and bring it back into a balanced state, a state that we call coherence. And when we look at coherence, it is getting the nervous system back into balance. And when we get the nervous system back into balance, that's when we can have access to the higher thinking centers of our brain. So the number one thing to do when you shift into out of that stress state, the number one thing to do is breath. A lot of times when we're stressed, we hold our breath, or we just breathe right here to our chest and we don't breathe all the way down into our belly. So the next time you're feeling that level of stress and you're noticing the tension in your neck or your body, I'm going to invite you to then just take a deep breath. Put your hand on your belly and feel your belly rising in and out. Just take 5 deep breaths, and that will help to balance your nervous system. That's one of the first steps that we can do. When you balance the nervous system, it brings your body back into the state of coherence. When we're in coherence, now the body is moving in a synergistic method with inside your nervous system. So I'm going to invite you next time that you feel your stress to take that deep breath, take 5 deep belly breaths. Notice your language. Notice your language of what you're saying to yourself and make a choice. Because when you make a choice to be calm, or you make a choice to propel this into a new action, you move yourself in a new direction. If you'd like more information, I'm going to put the link below again to the webinar, 5 Steps to Biohack Your Physiology to Reduce Stress, Overwhelm, and Burnout and Produce Up to 40% More. There's some other really cool techniques in there that you can jump into that webinar and learn some of those techniques. And thanks for joining, and we'll see you on the next Facebook Live. Take care.